Have you figured out your niche? Are you helping adding value to other people's lives? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Jahabi.
Greetings from Chicagoland. This is Munira, the Niche Navigator, coming to you live on Munira's Musings, where we showcase a guest every week and talk to them about their journey to their niche. Our guest today is Rachel Luther, all the way from Ohio. Hi, Rachel. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So Rachel has found her niche. She's been doing work in her niche for almost 10 years, but let's hear what she has to do. But before we do that, we bring this show to you because we are always looking for people, one, to be a guest on Munira's Musings, and two, if you are still looking for a niche and need to figure it out, by listening to other people's stories, you may figure yours out. So it's an inspiration, it's a journey, it's just something that we take and we say, why create success when you can follow the footsteps of people who have already made it? So without further ado, let's talk to Rachel. Rachel, welcome to Munira's Musings again. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Munira. I started my business kind of by default. So you were saying like by listening someone else's story, you might find what your niche is. And mine just kind of happened by nature of life. So you may not know what it is, even when you're starting it, you may not know. And that is okay for sure. When I started Check Off Your List, which is my company, I had no idea what it would become 10 plus years later. And I started out as a virtual assistant, wanting to bring in some extra money as a stay-at-home mom. And that was way before being a virtual assistant was so popular and was such the thing that it is today. It was very new. And but that's what I wanted to do. I realized growing up, my parents were entrepreneurs, and I saw the need that they had for that. They could have really used someone to help as needed in all these different areas rather than them trying to do everything themselves. They owned a very successful restaurant, but it would have been great to have someone to do marketing a couple hours a week or to do bookkeeping and payroll and all of those things so that they could focus on their restaurant and running the restaurant and doing the things that really made them money and what they were passionate about. So I kind of started a business, and now 10 plus years later, I would say my passion and my niche is outsourcing. I have really honed in on what that looks like and how to use that in my life to have all the things and be able to participate in the things that I'm passionate about, because we have so many things that we're excited to do, but there's not enough time in the day. And so I have kind of strategically used outsourcing to help me hone in on the things that I care about so that I can do as much of that as possible and as much less of the other things as possible.
Okay, so that's awesome, right? And you brought in so many points. My brain was racing to the questions. So let's start with the questions, right? Okay, when you said you started this and you saw your parents doing it, who did you first contact? Who was your first client, and how did you find that first client?
Yeah, so I just started with my general network that I knew, and actually just a contact that I knew through my parents' restaurant was my first client. I got a couple right away, like in a very short period of time. So I'm actually not sure which happened first, but one was a patron of the restaurant that I knew that was a serial entrepreneur, as I like to call them. He owned several businesses. So I took over his bookkeeping for those many businesses and did general admin things for him. I then also went to networking groups in Columbus. I'm in Ohio, right outside of Columbus. So I went to networking groups, and that is how I started getting my first clients. I just started meeting people and sharing what I did. And there was a lot of education at first because people didn't know what a virtual assistant was. They didn't understand the remote aspect of the relationship. A lot of times they wanted to know, well, when will you be in my office? And that's not what virtual means. That's not how it works. And, but yeah, so networking, and my first multiple clients was through a speed networking event or a networking event where I went to a luncheon or a morning coffee, a lunch and learn, those types of things. That's how I started. Now I feel like we get our clients mostly by word of mouth. And so happy clients referring friends, family, colleagues, as well as social media, online. The online world has often replaced the face-to-face networking in a lot of ways. Even if you hop onto Zoom, and do something that way, there are a lot of those options. So I think that's more how we bring leads in now.
So let me ask you this. Were you an accountant when you took over the first accounting business?
I was not an accountant. I was a bookkeeper. So my education is in business with an accounting emphasis. I was in school for the accounting program, but had not finished that at that time. And I worked as a bookkeeper. So I did not lean into the CPA aspect of it, but I definitely have the training and expertise in bookkeeping. Yeah, that's how I started.
That's awesome, right? And so you took what you knew and then you reinvented yourself in that, right? So the reason I'm asking is that there's a lot of people who have a lot of skills out there, and then they think that this is not, oh, what am I going to do with this, right? And then you just leave it and you forget about it. But this is a new way to reinvent yourself, because you take the skills that you have and you go figure out what you can do with that. Now, did you just work in the bookkeeping business, or did you start something else as well?
I did bookkeeping as well as general executive assistance, as well as social media support. And then as my company grew, I hired people with those expertise. So now I don't do any of the services. My entire team, I have expert bookkeepers, expert social media strategists, experts HR, and experts in web design, graphic design. We have a team of, I think, 18 plus people that provide all those services. So I took what I knew, which was my background in bookkeeping, social media, and executive assistance, and started there. And then as I wanted to scale and grow my business, I started outsourcing and utilizing a team to make that even more possible and go that next step.
So what comes to mind is that you're an orchestra master, right? Standing there, do this, do that, and that's what you're doing, right?
Yes, that is a lot of what I do now these days, for sure.
But you had to start somewhere. But no, that's an amazing trip. Now you also have a podcast?
I do, yes. So I have a podcast called Checking Off Your List with Rachel Loser. It is designed for the entrepreneur who wants to scale their business or is scaling their business and wants to just hone that skill. The idea being is, how do you effectively outsource your business and your life? Really, it goes beyond just hire a virtual assistant, because that may be one of many solutions. That may not even be the solution for you. But how do you evaluate your life and look at your day-to-day to hone in on what you're passionate about, so that you can fill your day with the things that excite you, with what gets you up out of bed in the morning, and allow other people who are excited to do the other things in your business or at your house or anywhere in life, allow them to do that because they're excited, they're passionate, and you get better results because everyone's working in their zone of genius. Everyone is excited to do what they're doing. And so that's kind of what my podcast is about. Over 10 plus years experience of outsourcing and figuring out what it looks like and how to do this. I want to save other entrepreneurs that struggle, that real life, learning through hard knocks, and just learn from what I learned. So the first season is just me sharing those tips and things. And then we're going to be launching the second season, which is me interviewing entrepreneurs on their journey. How do they help small businesses? But then also, how have they scaled their business? How does outsourcing work for them? What does that look like? To learn from them and what their experience has been and what tidbits they can offer.
Okay, that's an awesome way to do this. All right. So tell me, when you started your business and you started growing, right? And you had to go find the experts. How did the negotiations take place over there? Like, were they open to working for you because they could take that business and run with their own business, right? So how does that work? Because there's some people who want to be just told what to do and you just go do that. And there's some people who are capital minded and said, oh, you know what? I don't want to work for her anymore. I can go do this on my own. So have you had that issues as well?
Sure. I think what you're really talking about is, at least from my experience, people who really want to take ownership of something and people who like to follow directions and do the tasks as it's outlined. And there's a fine balance, because the people who do what they're told and follow directions are very key and very valuable to keeping a machine running and to keep a business running. You also need the people who take ownership of something so that you don't have to keep your brain focused on it and be the one who has ownership of it. So you don't have to manage as much. You don't have to keep it on your thought. You can truly let someone else take over, let someone else be responsible for it. But then there is that other motivation where some people want to own their own business and they want to, capitalize on that and continue to grow that way. So you have to find what works for you. And so as I scaled my business, sometimes I would hire that business or that contractor because that was what met our needs. Now I hire employees who can take ownership of a job. They're passionate about their job, but they don't want the risks and the responsibilities and all of the things that come with owning a business. Because there's a lot to owning a business that people don't count on. There's a lot of risk involved. There's a lot of time and hours and money that goes into it that you don't think about when you're exchanging time for money as an employee. So I focus on finding those people who are passionate about social media, but they do not want to run their own business. They don't want to take that on. They're not passionate about being an entrepreneur. And that's a really good balance for me. And depending on what you're wanting to do, I think finding a business and hiring them is a great step. I think especially for the as needed, like you don't need to hire a full-time social media expert. So you don't want someone who wants to come be your employee. You want someone who's maybe 5-10 hours a week on social media at a minimum, something like that. Well, then a company is exactly what you need, because you have someone who's an expert, they're passionate about it, they're in it every day, all day long. So you get that experience and you get all the value that they bring without the dollars that come along with hiring someone like that full time. And so that's what I recommend for business owners, is to find that company. That's how Check Off Your List has evolved. We are the company that a lot of businesses look to for their back office support when outsourcing. It's a company that they don't have to worry about their contractor leaving or their contractor moving on, because they hired a whole team. So if there even is transition at Check Off Your List for some reason, then you still have that constant relationship and still have that consistent support that's valuable to a small business or a scaling business. So hopefully that answered your question. That was kind of a lot around that general topic, but
no, it did, because there's people out there who want to create their own businesses, right? And then you get that a lot, because people become, oh, you know what? I'm working for this person. Why not just, I can do this on my own. Why not just start my own company? Mm-hmm. And then you have people who, instead of creating living with a good relation, they live with a bad taste in your mouth, and you take your clients with you, and that becomes a problem as well. So so there's risks involved, and we as business owners have to be cognizant of the risks that are out there. So in my personal relationship with my VA has not been a good one. I had one who decided she was going to just go out and do stuff that I didn't ask her to do, that got me in a little bit of trouble. So all of that, working towards it. And there's always, sometimes if you get a cheaper person from maybe the East Asia parts of the world, then there's a language problem, and then there's a relationship problem, and timing problem, and then you never get to that person. So you have to be cognizant of all of these things. So no, but
absolutely. There are different things to look for when you're looking for a virtual assistant, and you can prioritize different things. You're talking about all the struggles that I definitely hear people talk about. And there's an evaluation of what makes sense for your business and where you're at. People who go overseas, you're exactly right. There will be a language barrier. There will be time difference. There will be some obstacles, but the price point is much better. So you need to evaluate which resource do you have more of? Can you hire someone who's a higher level expertise, who's US based, and it's going to cost you more, but it'll be much easier. Communication will be easier, and they'll be more efficient and effective, but it's going to cost more. So it's less of your time, but more of your financial investment. So you have to figure out where you are in your business and what makes sense for that. And so, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. We talk through a lot of that with our potential clients and our clients. We hear a lot of those stories. I have this VA and it didn't work out for this XYZ reason, and kind of figuring out, well, what was the breakdown and what does that look like? What's the right solution from that? I actually do a whole podcast episode on the different types of virtual assistants and which one might make sense. So that might be, if this aspect of what we're talking about really piques your interest and you're, unsure of what your steps are, that would be a great thing to pop in and listen to, because it kind of goes through your different options and pros and cons. Why would you pick one? Good things, bad things, of all of the above.
And you make sense, because that's the problem, right? Because and then half the time it's giving control to somebody. It's like, you've been handling this for a while and now you want to take this and take it over. And so I understand all of that aspects, and it's so amazing to talk to somebody who has that expertise. Thank you so much. So give us 2 tips that people should do when they're looking for a VA.
Well, I would definitely figure out what expertise you're looking for. There are different expertise for different virtual assistants. They should be an expert in HR, or an expert in real estate support, an expert in bookkeeping, or an expert in social media or web design or graphic design. Insert all of the above. So I recommend looking at the things you want to outsource. You can just kind of make a list of all of your responsibilities and look at what you avoid. Look at what just continues to be, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. You keep putting it off because you just don't want to, or you don't feel like you're good at it. And then look at that list of those things and see what kind of expertise you need. If you are not a creative person, if you are not into marketing, not into social media, and you struggle in that area, then you definitely want to lean towards a marketing virtual assistant. That will be the best option for you. If you really avoid numbers and your finances and your books are not in order, and that's really what you need, because you need to be able to make good financial decisions for your business, then you want to look for a bookkeeping virtual assistant. Or if you just need organized and you just need support, and I just need someone who can intuitively help me with these projects and things, then you're looking for an executive assistant. And so figure out what expertise you need and start there, because that's going to get you the results you need. If you find someone who does all of the things, there are a lot of virtual assistants who advertise, I do bookkeeping, I do marketing, I do all of these things. I beg to say they don't do them all well. And that's not a personal thing. That's just me knowing my limitations and knowing the limitations of people. There are certain things that we're all inclined to and certain things that we're all good at. So find what they're good at and what they're inclined to and use that. And so that's the first thing that I would say. Actually, that's kind of 2. Figure out what you need to outsource first. And those are going to be the things that you don't get to, the things that are always on your to-do list, the things that you keep putting off and that are not in your niche and don't excite you. Then find the expertise needed to actually do that well and better than you, because that's when you really start getting exponential results, is when you outsource to someone who's better at it than you. You don't have to train them. You don't have to tell them how to do it. And that's how you let go of your baby. That's how you can be comfortable letting go. Because as a business owner, I remember what it was like hiring that first person, and I micromanaged and I was stressed, and I felt like I spent more time watching them and double checking their work than it would have taken for me to do it myself. But as I hired people who were experts, I could this is what I need done. They took it, ran with it, got better results, and were creative and provided solutions rather than looking to me. And that's when it really started working. And that's when I got a lot of bang for my buck, so to speak. It just really started working well.
So where can we find you?
You can find me online on Instagram. You can find me at Rachel Luther. On Facebook, you can find me at Checking Off Your List with Rachel Luther. And then to find my podcast, it's on all the streaming, anywhere you can listen to a podcast as Checking Off Your List with Rachel Luther. And then, of course, you can just find us online at coylwithrachelluther.com.
Awesome. Any last tips you want to share with us?
I think we covered it. We seem to have covered a lot of it. So I think I threw all of that into the last question there.
Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, see, we can't do it all. We all need help. And sometimes it just to get a VA is the right person. Now, we don't have to be struggling. There's a lot of other places where you can find a VA, but knowing what you need and talking to people like Rachel, they can help you connect to the dots and figure it out. But don't do it all, because you are an entrepreneur and you're wearing a lot of hats and you're still trying to figure out what you need to do. And if you're still doing that, then you need a VA. But like she said, the biggest aspect of any business is finance. So get that in order first. And we can work through that, and we can work through it and figure it, you can work through that and have a VA who can just work occasionally on your books, take a look at it. It's like having a daily checkup or a monthly checkup, or a biannual checkup for your books and your business to see how healthy you are. And then it goes from there, because sometimes when you have issues with your CPA and you're looking for documentation, that can become a problem if you don't know where everything is in the right place. So get
Absolutely.
that together and start working on that. And I appreciate you, Rachel, for being here. We had a little bit of time difference issues, but it was all good.
That was all on me.
Yeah, we just calculated it wrong. But that happens in business. So the thing is that you find your calm in your chaos, right?
Yes.
And everybody who is listening out there, please go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And if you want to be a guest, please go ahead and be a guest on our show. Contact me and I'll send you the link to make an appointment. And thank you very much. We'll see you next week with a new guest. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Jahabi. If you enjoyed our show, please share and subscribe to this channel. And for more content, please join our Facebook group.